I always get excited when we talk wrestling on this podcast. This past weekend in particular, man, we had the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and it was a memorable one. I think aside from the elephant in the room that we'll get to, it was just an overall great show. I think every match delivered. I think Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, two of my favorite current wrestlers. I would say Kevin Owens is probably in my top three current from the current era, just like favorite wrestlers right now. Both of them put on a show, and just context for anyone who is not familiar, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they're like kind of like these longtime friends slash rivals, so frenemies, if you will. And they seem to put on a classic match just every now and then. And this past this past pay-per-view was scheduled or was set took place in Toronto. So both of these wrestlers are Canadian, so they put on a show for their home fans, and they definitely delivered. And I guess the other big thing from the night, there was the women's elimination chamber match won by Bianca Belair. Shout out to her. And the big thing, the biggest match, I would say, was the men's elimination chamber, in which John Cena came out on top. It was between John Cena, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Logan Paul, and Damian Priest. Just great match all around. It was won by John Cena with some assistance from Seth Rollins at the end of the match, in which he was able to take out CM Punk. So what that means is that this now sets the stage for WrestleMania, which is in April, the biggest pay-per-view of the year, in which John Cena will face Cody Rhodes, who is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. So he is what many would consider the main champion on the roster. So it's set to be the main event of WrestleMania. However, when John Cena won this match, people, what it was portrayed as this potential babyface versus babyface match. And what that means is just good guy versus good guy. So just two fan favorites duking it out in the ring for the title. That's what the stage was set to be. That's what the match was set to be. But the pay-per-view ended with a little segment that had been teased for some weeks, in which The Rock returns and he gives Cody Rhodes, the champion, this kind of ultimatum where he can align with him or not. Basically, for those who may not know, The Rock is also on the board for TKO, which owns both the UFC and WWE. So what this did is it kind of plays into the real life kind of just administration picture, where Dwayne The Rock Johnson has a big say of what goes on in the world of WWE these days. So his Rock character, Hollywood Rock, has been around for about a little bit over a year now, and he gave Cody this kind of ultimatum where he could align with him and kind of be carried under The Rock's wing, and therefore be granted favor from The Rock and the administration. And so the show, Elimination Chamber, ended with this kind of, Cody, are you aligning with The Rock? What do you say? Here's everything that I'm putting on the table. Are you joining me or are you not joining me? Cody then rejects The Rock's offer, kind of teases that he's about to join him, but then ultimately rejects it. John Cena is also in the ring because he's just won the final match, so he embraces Cody. And as he's embracing Cody, he makes eye contact with The Rock, who kind of does this little signal where that little execution signal with the fingers along the throat or along the neck. And what happens is Cena ultimately low blows Cody, attacks him, beats him up in the center of the ring, even chokes him out and makes him bleed, does the whole 9 yards, the heel turn that we thought we would have never seen For those who may not, I feel like I'm just giving context after context, but the last thing I'll say is John Cena has been a good guy or a babyface for over 20 years now. So he originally started with his Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick, in which he was this like kind of just rude, very raw freestyle rapper, kind of like hip hop portrayal, white guy from Massachusetts, but he would just diss everybody in the ring. And he would also, he was just like a very rude kind of wrestler. And then he ultimately became kind of like this very, I guess you could say, perfect poster child for WWE. And he's had that image for over 20 years now. And what happened this past weekend was basically a heel turn, or you could say the hero becoming a villain for the first time since the early 2000s, which was a shock to many, to say the least, and definitely broke the internet. I think they broke the internet. A lot of people were just speaking on it. A lot of people were shocked. So, there was just a lot going on. So I know that was a mouthful, but I wanted to make sure I gave you all the appropriate context. So wanted to know, what are y'all's reactions to this? And did y'all see this at all? I mean, I know, Dre, I was bombarding DMs with crazy, like, oh my gosh, like, are you watching? But I want to know, did y'all see this on your feeds? Seen people speaking on this? What have you seen through the lens of social media so far?
Yeah, actually, I'm more curious, Alexi, if you've seen anything not being in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I've actually seen a surprising amount of stuff, I feel like. I feel like I get John Cena on my feed fairly regularly just because he does so much. I mean, he does WWE, he acts in movies, like he's in Peacemaker, what is it? Peacemaker, Peacekeeper? I almost said pacemaker.
Now that you're saying it, now you're making me
yeah.
I think it's Peacekeeper.
No, Peacemaker.
Peacemaker. Wait, Peacemaker.
Peacemaker. Peacekeeper is the gun from Black Ops 2. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. He's a very versatile dude. So I see him every now and again, but I saw him a lot after this. Especially being with The Rock and then Travis Scott for some reason in the corner. It was just a wild combination of people, and as many have claimed, it was like an IRL Fortnite lobby. But yeah, I mean, I never really knew much about John Cena and like his character. I always kind of assumed he was more of a good guy, I guess, but I didn't know something like this would be such a huge deal, especially after watching it. Like, as an outsider, it didn't seem super eventful, but I can understand with context how it is. But definitely a cool moment, especially just because, I mean, John Cena and The Rock, at least in my eyes, I mean, they're OGs. I mean, we grew up with them being big names, so it's cool to still see them around. But yeah, there was a lot going around, but I've seen some great memes from soccer relating to this, to video games, just good stuff.
Interesting, Dre, and I like that you said that it didn't seem like this like big moment, because I definitely understand that. I think on the surface, it's what wrestlers do, right? They attack each other, they betray each other. It doesn't seem like a big deal. But Dre, if you had to come up with like the equivalent in maybe like, I don't know, the superhero world, or I'm trying to think what else has like good guy, bad guy. I think superhero is like the best kind of like avenue to draw some kind of analogy. Do you have like an equivalent that you can draw?
Yeah, it's tough. I think superhero is a good comparison, because that's kind of what WWE is like drawing on for their storytelling. Not all the time, but especially with someone like Cena, because we're talking about Cena, it's a good example. He's literally was nicknamed Super Cena by the fans. Like, he is, well, and was built up to be an insurmountable like beacon of peace and hope and being good, just goodness in general. kind of similarly to how Hulk Hogan was back in the 80s and I guess into the 90s, before WCW. But I'm trying to think. Yeah, to be honest, I guess he's the closest thing to Superman that the WWE has. Like, that's kind of what they kind of portrayed him to be, not just in his character, but in his marketing, in his like wearing the bold, bright colors for like his costumes, his move set just being super big moves. Like, everything about Cena was meant to build up to be this massive figure for good, specifically. So I guess it would literally be like Superman using some underhanded tactic. And even then, there are comic storylines where you have Superman being evil, maybe not through his own like choices, maybe sometimes like maybe brainwashing or something else, but even then, it's more likely that you see an evil Superman arc than an evil John Cena arc, which is crazy to say, but that's just the reality of like Cena's history in the company, unless you like take into account like ruthless aggression or something like that. But other than that, Cena, even being the doctor of thugonomics, became such a beloved character. And for there to be a moment like this 20 years down the line, even for someone like me who hasn't been as tapped in, but like knowing this is going to be Cena's last run, I started to get reinvested. I'm like, oh, I need to see Cena win this 17th title. I'm rooting for him. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that. Cena's like a good representation of like growing up, if that makes sense. How do I put this? Like, Cena's like, when you're a kid, you love Cena. When you're a teenager and you're going, and I'm not saying this is me specifically, but just like in terms of like how stories tend to go. And you're a teenager, you're kind of rebellious, you're kind of angsty, whatever. And you're like, oh, you think you're too cool for Cena. But when you become an adult, you're like, actually, Cena was pretty dope the whole time. And I feel like that's been Cena's arc with the WWE fans. Like, they started loving him, and then he was so much a force for good and just on top the whole time that people were like, this guy kind of boring. Like, I'm kind of fed up with Cena. But he was still putting the company on his back the whole time. So even if the crowd was turning on him, really deep down, they always respected him. And he like just soldiered through that. Even when he was getting booed constantly for years, he was still putting on the front of I'm John Cena. And I'm not even gonna say front. Cena seems like just a great person in general. So it made sense for someone, a human like him, to portray a character like this. But even through all that, he's good Cena getting booed for years. And now that it's come full circle, he's finally getting cheered again because people are like, actually, you always did respect you. Now, when that's at its fever pitch and it's time for you to go win that title as a face, you go and make the switch to go out. I'm not saying he's going to necessarily go out as a heel. Maybe we'll have something at the end of the year to go back to being a face or something. But to make that switch now is honestly genius. And I think even for both for Cena and the company, I think is genius. But I can understand Cena being about to lead the company, and he's like, I kind of want to experience what this is like, because he never actually got to do it properly. Like, even if when he was being booed, he was still, like I said, he was still being the good guy. So for him, before you go out, if you want to have this run as a heel, I think he's earned it. And I think it's a perfect time to do it, especially with The Rock, because The Rock kind of got forced into it last year, which is kind of funny. Like, last year, The Rock was trying to was doing the comeback as like the big boss kind of thing. Before he really leaned into it, the fans weren't having it. And he was like, okay, now let me make this my character. I'm going back to the old school Rock theme. I'm going to be like the final boss. I'm going to blend the lines of like, I'm the corporate guy and in the ring, like talking to guys. But Cena, it seems like this is fully a choice to do this. He didn't really get forced into doing this. So I like it. I like it a lot. And I think it makes sense story-wise, because if Cena is so hell-bent on getting the 17th title, the people who are really hell-bent and will do anything to achieve that are the heels. The faces, they have like that determination, and it's supposed to be earnest, but sometimes it just doesn't work out for them because they're not willing to go to any length. But the heels are. So if Cena's actually going to win the 17th title, this makes a lot of sense for me.
100%. And I like what you said about John Cena does kind of carry that arc of of what it is to grow up, because that is what it is. And I think when everyone was booing Cena, a big part of that was also the product had grown stale. John Cena was the main good guy. He was the main person who would just win all the big matches. So if there was ever a big match and it involved John Cena, all the fans knew, okay, Cena's gonna win in the end. Cena is Super Cena. He has so many, like, I guess you could say, like, memed nicknames, like Big Match John. Like he just becomes this, like, okay, like, this, here comes Cena, like, here to save the day again. And it got boring, right? So people were clamoring for a heel turn maybe a little bit over 10 years ago. I think around the time when CM Punk was kind of taking the world by storm, like 2011-ish. People saw CM Punk as like a breath of fresh air, and that's why they got behind him so much, because they had just been force fed this John Cena character that they had been growing tired of, right? And like you said, now that he's in the final phase of his career, in the final year, people weren't expecting him to turn heel. So the fact that it happened is just such a major twist in the story. We thought it was going to be this really nice, really wholesome farewell tour where we get to see Cena chase that 17th title, but now it's storytelling, and it's storytelling that has been in the works for over 20 years. Like, there is just so much history that was involved in that turn, where I completely understand why people were shocked. I myself could not believe it. I literally was messaging people left and right trying to get people's reactions, and almost none of my friends were watching it, which was so funny yet so frustrating, because I was like, I need someone to, like, hear me out on this. I need someone to talk to this, or like talk about, or talk, you know what I mean, talk about this too, because it's so insane. It was so wild, and now I'm just that much more excited to see how WWE is going to write this story. How are they going to write this script? It looks like Cena's going to win the 17th title. Is he going to do it under his alliance with The Rock? There's also speculation that because The Rock kind of put up two fingers when John Cena did his heel turn, on their way out, The Rock put up three fingers on his way out. And now people are thinking, is there a third member who's going to join this, like, weird faction? Like, if so, who is that going to be? There's been people who speculate, is it Jey Uso? Is it Seth Rollins? You know, there's just so many directions in which this can now go, where I'm just so excited to see it. So again, I think since the arrival of Triple H, since Triple H has taken over creative, we have now seen that the storytelling that's being delivered has years of history involved in it. Last year we had Cody Rhodes win the World Heavyweight Championship, and what that meant was, okay, here's this second generation superstar who was initially in this company as this kind of comedic guy. People didn't really care much about his character. He was nothing more than just a legacy. He was literally in a faction called Legacy, and in the end, he leaves the company. He kind of has this, like, prodigal son kind of story where he leaves his the company that made his father, that made him, and then becomes the world champion on the biggest stage. And that I think was such a good story because of all the years of history that it had underneath the script. And I think we're just going to continue to get that this year, which is why I'm just so blown away, because I'm like, man, I was not expecting this, as I feel like many people weren't. So to me, I'm just happy that it happened. I never thought we would see this, and now I'm just, like, waiting to see when Cena makes his next television appearance, because I want to hear what he has to say. I want to hear what was your logic? Why did you do it? Is he going to come out in new ring gear? Is he going to have a new theme song? Like, these are all things that I'm just questioning now, and I'm so excited to see what happens.
Same here. Although I will say, his entrance music is so iconic that I feel like it's tough to. I mean, I'm sure they'll do it just for the novelty of it, but to have a new one in your last year is kind of crazy. But I'm sure they'll want to at least change the image for now. But at least if you do that, at least I hope for like by the end of the year, if he goes back face or something, or at least he uses his like normal one by the end of the year again if they do switch it, because I feel like he can't have his last match whenever that's gonna be using some random theme song, bro. We need like that. We need that iconic one. But I will say though, that since we kind of hit on the storytelling and the context aspect of it there, I do want to talk about the actual execution of it a little bit though, because like you said, we were DMing about this when it was happening, and I will say the execution itself, I don't think was the best. I think the actual moment where he's hugging Cody and he's looking over his shoulder and The Rock hits him with the signal, I think that was really well done. And Cena's face, like you can see the acting chops are coming through. Cena's face was perfect there. I think that moment works. But then the actual heel turn and the beating up on the face for like the next 10 minutes, I just thought the pacing of that was kind of awkward. And just because he didn't hit an AA. Honestly, if you hit one AA in there somewhere, I think it works. Like to end it or to start it, if he just hit an AA, I think it works. Like when he first pulls away, he gets him the low blow, picks him up, hit him with the AA, and then you could beat him up with freaking Rolex and the belt and the mic or whatever. Like, but just going through the items one by one, I know it's supposed to be like sadistic and methodical, whatever, but for me, just that felt kind of awkward. And then having Travis Scott come in and slap the hell out of Cody Rhodes, like, for one, it was funny, but it's just kind of weird. And maybe you can give me more context. Why the hell is Travis Scott just constantly in the ring?
I was very confused by that, bro. He spawned out of nowhere.
He's so
He was
funny.
like, you know what? I'm gonna take down Fufu Homelander by myself.
Not for real. That's crazy. But I know he was on the first episode of the Netflix Raw. From what I understand, he does the theme song now or something like that. But it just feels weird that he's like coming out with The Rock. That you're having the Ifya Samel turning the Fiend, and then he's just like coming out making his entrance with The Rock. Like the whole thing just seems so random to me. But I don't know if you have more context for that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't have much more context. I am also very confused as to why Travis Scott is there. He isn't needed, if I'm being honest. Obviously, I do see the value in having someone who is such a big name just present on screen. It's obviously going to turn heads. People are going to see it on social media, and people are going to be like, why is Travis Scott at this taping? Like, why is he in the WWE? I think that's what it does. But WWE is no stranger to using celebrities. Obviously, now I think they're kind of leaning into it more. We were talking not too long ago about Speed at the Royal Rumble, and we were talking about just Kai Cenat being involved in a WWE taping. So it's always happened. I am also thinking right now of back, I think it was WrestleMania 14. So this is what, almost 26 years ago, where it was Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold, and Mike Tyson was present, and he was, to be fair, he served a much more pertinent role in the match. He was a special guest referee, but even then it was a little bit like, okay, you have two of the biggest wrestlers in the ring. Why do you need another big name just to chill in the ring with them? Like that's how I feel. But I don't fully understand it either. Also, yes, the theme and like that little rock theme mashup, I was so confused by. But to be honest, I think I was so happy that I just ignored Travis's involvement. Haven't really thought much about it because I was like, all right, ain't nothing gonna bring me down. Nothing is gonna bring me down from this excitement that I'm currently on. This kind of, this crazy moment. I'm not gonna let anything ruin it. But no, I do not have any answers about Travis.
Fair. It was just funny. Like when he came out with Fiend, Bro took, I don't know what he was drinking, but he took like 80 sips before the beat dropped, bro. He just kept sipping. The beat didn't even drop. I think he just didn't know what to do with his hands. It was kind of awkward. And I don't know where the drink went. I kind of missed that part, but
I saw him sipping something when he left the stage, so
I guess he just
he added
dropped
on
it
him.
off and picked it back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think it was funny because, like, speaking about the execution too, the way they were just slowly hitting him with object after object. One thing I hate, I know they always do it, but I hate when it's so obvious, is when like they do something and then they clearly pose for a photo. I hate when they do that. And I think with Travis there, they were doing it a lot. And I think that's what kind of took me out of the immersion. Because like you said, this is like one of the most momentous occasions in the history of the company. Like 20 years of build up to this moment. And then they hit him with the belt, and then they all just go stand there, hit their mark. For they're posing for a photo. In the ring, The Rock and Cena are like directing him low key, like, "Oh, you should stand here, like do this." And then they exit the ring, they turn, hit that one, look back to the camera, pose for the photo. Like that thing, that always makes it corny for me. But I know it's just a part of the gig with the business. But it also doesn't make sense to me is like Travis, right? A role I think makes sense for him is when he came out with Jey Uso on the first Raw. That made sense. Like they're hyping him up, even though to me Jay, if I'm not mistaken, is a super babyface right now. But then he came out with him, and then all of a sudden he's part of this heel faction that's slapping up Cody Rhodes. Like, what's going on, bro? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. So, okay. I realized too, I didn't get to your like
execution.
I know you didn't necessarily ask. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if you asked for clarification on the execution, but that is also an important thing I did want to get to because there is some storytelling involved in the execution. I'm fully with you. I also wish he had hit the AA. It's John's finisher. I think it makes sense. But I also think it's cool because this now means we may not see John Cena hit Cody with an AA until WrestleMania. So that's going to make that moment just that much bigger because there's going to be like like when he hits it, people are going to be like, and if and when Cody kicks out of it, it's going to just make it that much more of a moment. And I think that's definitely intentional. But if we look at everything that John did, well, first, the low blow is, okay, here I am turning into a bad guy, right? The next thing he did, he actually picked up a Rolex that was gifted to Cody by The Rock at last year's WrestleMania. So he hits Cody with the same gift that was given to him by the final boss, who he is now aligning with. So I think there's some symbolism in that, right? This person who appeared to be your friend has set you up this entire time, and so therefore, right, I'm gonna hit you with the gift that he gave you to show you that no, we are no longer with you, we no longer care about you. So he then he then throws a few punches at him to kind of just add insult to injury. He then hits him with the mic, which I'm like, okay, I don't know about that one. Like I was a little bit confused by that one. The microphone, I'm like, it's been done before, but I'm like, there's worse objects to hit somebody with. I don't know why we just didn't go with like a steel chair. Like if we were gonna go with full foreign objects, why did we go with the mic? I don't know. It was accessible. Who knows? Maybe he hits him with the mic because they had just finished a promo where Cody had kind of turned his back on The Rock and told him to go, to go F himself. So there's all that, right? And then he finally finishes it off with hitting Cody with the title belt, which is the coveted prize. And he holds it up in front of the audience into this little camera shot to say like, hey, this is what this is all about. This is what I'm chasing. So he hits him with the title belt. I think he hits him more than once, and then he chokes him out with his tie, which I don't know if there's much symbolism there. I think it's just to add insult to injury. But I would say the hit with the hit on the face with the Rolex was its own moment, and I think there was some story behind that. And then obviously hitting him with the title was its was its own moment as well. When you consider Travis's involvement, I also do not know what it added to it. Maybe Travis is now involved in this WrestleMania storyline, but I don't know beyond that. But then the last thing I also want to mention is that Cody does have this like little belt that he wears in his wrestling attire, like his little jacket. And what The Rock did was whip him with it, which he did last year prior to their match as well. So I think most of the foreign objects that were used had kind of a look back to Cody's monumental win last WrestleMania, and maybe this is to signify like, all right, you had your big moment last WrestleMania, but now we're gonna hit you with everything that you earn, everything that represents you, and to just send a message of like, all right, you know, not to be corny, but your time is up, my time is now. I don't know, that's what I'm thinking.
I see what you did there. That's fair. No, I can see that perspective. For sure, they gotta get you in the writers' room because you're doing a lot of the reaching for them. But I respect that. Actually, just random tangent, but I actually thought about applying to the WWE writers' room, but I might have to move to Connecticut. So I don't know. One question I did have. This is a little off topic. Well, it's on topic, but just quick wrestling thing, and then we can move on. I know we've been waffling about this for a while. Is one thing I never really understood, and they kind of go back on this, is like Jey Uso won the Rumble because the whole point of the Rumble is the main event WrestleMania, and then it seems like John Cena won the Elimination Chamber, so he's gonna go actually take the main title fight. So who's Jey fighting for WrestleMania? I know they have 2 nights now, so technically 2 main events, but who's he facing?
So he's gonna be facing Gunther, who's the World Heavyweight Champion. So it's kind of like back in our day where they had the WWE title, which was the spinner belt, on Raw, and then the World Heavyweight Championship, which was on SmackDown.
Okay.
Gunther is on Raw, and he has the World Heavyweight title, so that's who Jey will be facing. Cody as the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I believe
That's so
the
confusing.
Yeah, I keep calling it that, but I don't know if that's the.
Is it not Universal, or they moved past that now?
They definitely moved past that, but
Okay, yeah, I'm so lost.
He's or it might just be WWE Champion.
I hope so, because those were the good days, which is WWE and World Heavyweight. That's way more clear. And they started doing the whole combined WWE World Heavyweight. That's so confusing.
Yes, so he's holding the WWE Championship. My mistake. That's what it's called. Not WWE World Heavyweight. It's just WWE Championship. Gunther has the World Heavyweight Championship. So just like it was back in our day, that's what it is. That's what he's holding. And that's what John's going for. Jey will be going for the World Heavyweight title, which is held by Gunther.